at what point did you meet and start to think that working together was a good idea?
Tinder, we swipe right, that's it.
You die before me, Roni, on your, what do you say, the stone?
Yes,
so
stone.
I pay money for, tombstone, I'll engrave it and put it there.
Kale pakoda.
people put fool, ye kale pakoda leke daal.
Madam.
When I was first thinking about the idea of Big Food Energy and who I could interview, Chintan Pandya and Roni Mazumdar were right at the top of that list. So having the two of them here today is honestly a full circle moment for me. Chintan and Roni are the minds behind Unapologetic Foods, a restaurant group that's redefined what Indian food can look like on a global stage. At a time when Indian food abroad was often being softened for a Western palate, they did the exact opposite. They've taken food that's intimate, regional, and sometimes stigmatized and served it up loud, proud, and completely unfiltered. And New York City just can't get enough. This conversation isn't about their wins or awards, though yes, there are many. It's about identity, risk, collaboration, and what it takes to build a food movement from the margins. This episode is defined in its simplicity and unafraid to burn the rulebook. And I'm matching that energy with Indian cookies by Bombay Sweet Shop. Part frills, part spice, and all flavor. Welcome, Chintan and Roni, to Big Food Energy. It's an absolute pleasure to have the two of you here.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you for making us part of this. It's exciting.
Of course, it's really an honor. But, what I love about your brand of restauranting is prior to Unapologetic Foods, there was this sort of whitewashing, for lack of a better word, for what restaurateurs and chefs were doing with Indian food in the States especially, either bringing down the spice quotient or changing up the plating in some way. And you guys came in and were completely unapologetic about it. And that's who we are, right? As Indians, we are unapologetic about who we are. So whenever I see you guys win or be recognized on an international platform, I feel like we all win when you win, and it's very, very special to see all of your successes. But the first question that I want to ask you is, are we there yet? I remember chatting with the two of you in Vegas at 50 Best last year, and we talked about how Indian food was having a little bit of a moment. But do you think the time has come for Indian food to shine on a global stage?
We always say this, it's not a moment, it's a movement. I think for a cuisine of this dynamism, it's almost unheard of anywhere across the world for it to not get its due. And to answer your other question, are we there yet? I don't think anywhere near. I think we have quite a bit of an uphill journey. Having less than 10 restaurants across the world that make a noise for 1/8 of the planet, I don't think it's good enough. If you look at statistics in America, there's about 5,000 plus Indian restaurants across America, where there's about 55,000 Mexican restaurants. And I understand proximity plays a role, but think of how much that opportunity still lies ahead. That means if there were literally 10x more of Indian restaurants of a certain caliber, not just existence of restaurants, of a certain quality caliber, then the conversation starts to shift. So we are nowhere near that. We're still standing at the very bottom of that mountain looking up.
Roni has been here for long enough time in America. I came to this country like 12 years back. And I think since the time I've come, the only narrative I've heard from operators is that it is the time for Indian food. It is the time for Indian food. But what I've realized is we actually haven't reached any level. And as Roni mentioned that, for that, we need a bigger spectrum of people, bigger spectrum of chef and operators to be there at a certain level. There are a lot of chefs who are of Indian origin in America, but there are not a lot of chefs who are trained in Indian food who are in America. If you come to New York, and because we are based out of New York, it's like in front of us. Yeah. If you look at Italian food or French food or Japanese, we have very high quality of chefs representing that food. And unfortunately, we have not reached that level where we have chefs who are at that level in a collective sense. Like we need at least 15 or 16 of them operating out of only New York City to make Indian food at that level. So I think that's what we are lagging on.
You know, it sounds great for a motivational talk. Oh my God, this is the time for Indian food.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to spending power, when it comes down to what exactly happens in restaurants, why from beverage sales and all of those aspects, we still are associated with Indian food equals to just, I'll grab a beer with it. That idea of it still hasn't permeated across the mainstream of majority of the world. And it's not just an America problem. What's happening in India in terms of the major hotel chains across the country for the last 5 decades?
Yeah.
Who are we catering to? We know the answer.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're catering to the US dollar.
Right? So we all understand that. And I think a cuisine shifts in many ways. The same way, if you go to a sushi master out in Japan, how dare you ask for him or her to change that narrative just because a consumer is coming from a different demographic? But we, maybe it is because of our colonial past, have always had this idea of catering to everybody. We as Indians use this word, we're so accommodating. I think it's an easy way to simply say it doesn't really matter what our own identity is. And I think to actually hold on to it, for it to matter for who we are, I think it makes us lose our sight on what reality is around us. Go to every single restaurant and you're going to realize it's a very similar set of ingredients that are being used. It's not the regionality of Indian food that's being, actually celebrated.
Yeah.
And it's starting to change. So I think we are at that moment where at a point of inflection where change is happening, but we're far from it.
Yeah, fair enough. You were talking about how diners necessarily are not well versed with Indian cuisine or don't necessarily attribute value to the cuisine. New York is famously one of the hardest markets to crack when it comes to food and restauranting. There are a few restaurateurs now based in India who are now looking to the West to expand. Chef Reggie Matthew just opened Chatti in New York. What would you say to Indian chefs and restaurateurs who are looking to expand to New York? Is there any advice that you would give them before jumping in based on everything you've seen?
I think it's a very amazing move that somebody like him is opening up over here. And I think his success will actually open up doorways to many other chefs who are based out of India, but they are scared, There's always for example, if you asked us to move to London tomorrow or to India tomorrow, there'll be a certain amount of fear we'll have that we are based out of here. How do we operate it? And I think the best thing is to come and spend 6-7 months. I think he spent a lot of time over here between India and New York.
He went back and forth.
Yeah, he went a lot and spent a lot of time, understood the market, realized what are the financials of it, economics of it, and then he opened it up. So it will be fun if a lot of good operators come out of India and open up in our part of the world now.
The pie increases in size. It's not that we're all trying to eat off a very tiny pot. So I think that's a misconception a lot of the times that happens, and rightfully so. It's scary because we have always been towards the bottom of the totem pole. It's a limiting belief that this is all that the market is. But to our disbelief, I think we didn't realize the market was bigger than what we expected. And it happened because in many ways because of Adda. I never thought a restaurant serving a real version of a saag paneer, something that is so quintessential, but made with local greens and house-made paneer, can actually have a line around the block for years on end. I didn't think that was possible.
No, I mean, and that's exciting when you see it.
Yeah, and just to add on, if I'm around at any of the restaurant and I see somebody comes and says, I want a table, and if we can't accommodate that person, let's say all the reservations are filled up with the seat and everything, the first thing I do is I open up the Google map and show them where the nearest Indian restaurants are. So one of the managers asked me, why do you do that? Don't you feel it's a competition? I said, no, I don't think so. I said, if you look at that as a competition, a Chinese restaurant across from you is a competition then, because they are selling a food. So I said, I'd rather have people go and eat Indian food and spend money in an Indian restaurant than to spend it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And as Roni said, let's say the pie today is $100. We shouldn't be worried how many people are opening. Our goal is to make that pie $1,000. everybody will still get a bigger chunk of that pie.
Look at the example. So Jean-Georges didn't get destroyed by Daniel Balloon. Eric Repair didn't get destroyed by Jean-Georges. And you can keep going.
Yeah.
You can
There was enough place for everyone.
Yes, because it expanded the horizon, it raised the bar. And I think we are at that moment where we desperately need to raise the bar of our cuisine. It's not about how many restaurants that exist. It's more about what quality and what integrity is that cuisine being served with.
Absolutely. No, it's so interesting you say that because even for me as a writer, when I'm pitching stories about India or about Indian cuisine, say to an international publication, very often the answer that I hear back from a pitch is, we just did an Indian food story a couple of months ago. And I'm like, okay, but how does that make a difference? Because it's not like you're counting whether you did an Italian food story or a French food story, because that's just part of the normal narrative. And I think it's all part of the same conversation.
When they are speaking about Italian food or French food, they will actually speak about a specific region.
Yeah, 100%.
They will say southern part of Italy or Napoli or northern part of Italy and that cuisine, and they might publish it in a year, 12 articles about it with different parts of it. But when they do a Indian food, it becomes like a generic big thing. And we control, we are like 1/7 of the population of the world right now. You understand? And still our food is categorized in those 10 dishes. It is it's very alarming, but hopefully it will change.
I mean, the idea is that if you just think of the word ethnic food, there's something inherently wrong with that.
Yeah.
Because so what is food versus what is ethnic food? And the truth is, if you take up all the ethnic food in the world, put that together, that's majority of the world. Yet all of us reside on one aisle at Whole Foods, the international aisle. How does that work? Who's making these rules? And that's what I think it's time to break through.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you talk to me a little about some of the barriers that Indian restaurateurs face, just in terms of operational barriers if you're setting something up? Chintan, you've shared a little bit in the past about how landlords have been reluctant to rent to Indian restaurateurs, sometimes revoking leases or even upcharging you. What are those kinds of operational issues that you faced in the past, and how does someone kind of combat that discrimination?
In every aspect where an emotion can play a role against Indian cuisine, it does. You don't even have a card to play. I'll give you a simple example. There are, right on Park Avenue, there would be a major organization that is redoing their headquarters. We would get called to go there and say, would you guys like to do something and run the F&B for this entire project? Sounds great, right? But the funny part of that is it only comes up at a much later point after the conversation has started. It doesn't come up in the beginning part of the conversation on that initial engagement. You know what? Actually, I'm not sure if Indian cuisine is really what we want here. Why? Because in many ways, and I'm not blaming a single person for it. I understand the perception that exists, but we want something a little bit more mainstream. Someone told me we want something that it feels like a little bit of a New York cafe, like that kind of a vibe. And everybody has the right to think what they want. But if there's one thing they don't want that ends up happening in these kinds of projects, or in terms of Indian cuisine, it starts to then form its own little pockets. Oh, that's Little India. Oh, that's the East Village. Maybe it's a Williamsburg project. You start to, without realizing, play by different rules. Then by the time you have moved on from the lease portion to actually gathering and getting your stuff ready and you're ready for opening, etc., do you realize how many staff members still to this date worry about working in an Indian restaurant? And I'm going to be very blunt. Oh, absolutely.
Why is that?
We have an incredibly diverse staff, but there's a deep-seated belief, and you have to know that when you are really, really in the trenches, because unfortunately there's a perception that Indians are terrible tippers. These are things that no one talks about. And I think unless it gets addressed, it doesn't change in society, because we all like to just keep telling ourselves that life is India is perfect, and it's not. And we are perfect, and we're not. And I think unless we actually look in the mirror and understand where the challenges are, there's a problem. Number two, there are certain factors that people think about, like, well, a lot of the people don't really want to drink. A lot of the people are probably going to be vegetarian. So what does that mean? That means my check average is going to be that much lower. And what does that mean? So if I'm working towards that gratuity, that tip, I'm actually taking home less money. So perception wise, why should I then take that job? Do you see where I'm going? And what it's doing now,
Wow, that's so granular.
but it's the heart of it all. It's the truth is the devil's in the details. It's never about these broad strokes. Oh, the world hates us. No one hates us. It's not about that. But when it hits your pocketbooks, you don't have a choice at that point. And at that point, what you start to think about is, wait a minute, if I am here, I'm working, I can work in another 70-seater restaurant and take home a little more money. Why should I work here? Even though the check average might be similar, but that perception exists.
Yeah.
And I'll just add on, Ronnie used a very specific term that Indians are bad tippers. But I hope you understand. I think Ronnie should have said Indians are bad tippers in Indian restaurants. No, honestly, no. I'm genuinely saying this. I'm genuinely saying this because it's evidently we have seen that these are the same people who will actually go to a non-Indian restaurant, a mainstream restaurant, and they would actually tip well. They will actually drink a bottle of wine and everything. But the same set of people, when they come to Indian restaurant, it just changes. It just changes. Like there's somebody we know, he's a tech millionaire. And we were sitting with him and he asked us one day that why do Indian restaurants don't make financial sense? And I said, let me explain you something. I said, let's say you and your wife are invited by an Italian or a French couple to go on a dinner date with them. Where will that French guy take you? Or an Italian guy will take you. He'll take you to a French or Italian restaurant, right? And you'll go there, have that fun time, have a bottle of wine and everything. I said, now reverse the role. You are inviting the same couple. Where will you take them? You will still take them to either Italian or a French restaurant. You are not getting them to Indian restaurant. So then who's there to spend money in our restaurants?
Let me give you another funny example. Do you realize dessert sales are dismal at Indian restaurants?
Why is that?
In many ways, a lot of the time, the desserts that are sold are two different styles. Either you're getting your gulab jamun and ras malai, or you're actually getting a French-inspired chocolate dessert, something that is so radically different from Indian cuisine.
Right. Yeah.
Let's name it gulab jamun mousse, ras malai tres leche. Like this is like it is the craziest thing. I'm like, why would you associate a name with like? And it's this funny like you can think of it like there's a Shrikhand froyo. I'm like, what is a Shrikhand froyo? Like Shrikhand is Shrikhand. Like stupid.
No, but we do it because the world, we perceive it to be that lunchroom in high school where you want to sit at that table and you desperately want to put on those sneakers because someone else allows you to sit at that table. And I think it's time we create our own table. The food critic for New York Times, the ex-food critic, Pete Wells, mentioned something very interesting. He says, these guys somehow cracked a code of figuring out how to serve their own food in a mainstream market when most of the time these reside in like a little outskirt of Queens, a little small restaurant that might be trying to make ends meet. That juxtaposition of two opposing worlds never existed because we were ashamed of moving the curtain from our own doors and actually inviting people into our rooms.
Yeah. No, it's interesting you brought up the Pete Wells review. Recently, some bloggers visited Semma and there was like a very distasteful review that Padma Lakshmi responded to, saying that Semma isn't for you, it's for us. And it got me sort of curious, and I was thinking about who really is the audience for unapologetic foods. How do you try and educate people who don't know much about Indian food? Obviously, you're catering to us, like Padma Lakshmi said. But who do you think is your audience?
It's no one and everyone, and I'm going to clarify that.
Okay.
You can keep cooking for other people for the rest of your life. But sometimes I think the biggest shift that unapologetic that happened was at Adda, Chintan said, this is what I love to eat. I don't know if people will like it. This is what I have grown up with. Not worrying about the external validation. This is my reality that I'm putting on a plate. We cooked for no one, yet everyone showed up. And that's what really happened. So, and similar journey goes from Adda, Dhamaka, Semma, across the board. The conversation never had been, do you think 5 other people will like it? What do you think? If and we felt that Indian restaurants have only thought itself from an outside in journey. What would outside of the world want from us? Therefore, I will do that for them. And I think if there's one thing Gen Z, millennials, whatever you want to call, are directly responding to, it's that truth, it's that integrity, it's what's on the plate, and what if there is a real context to what the food is. It's no longer about, a creme brulee of Indian cuisine. Actually, people are pushing that away. So in a weird way, our journey started because we became a forefront of a wave without ever realizing. And I think that's how it happens most of the time.
And, Smitha, just to reiterate that the day you're trying to teach people and convince them to eat your food, you have failed. That you have literally failed. It's like in my house, there are 5 individuals and everybody will eat one dish and have 5 different opinions. That doesn't make anybody wrong. That doesn't make anybody right. So there will be people who have a certain opinion about the food, but it's like what you believe in.
Smita, how many restaurants right now you can name that are serving you snails and goat intestines? You can call it a stunt. You can say, oh my God, these guys, they did it because, or beyond an outside stall, etc. Where's bheja fry? It's considered a down market product for whatever reason. Now, if you are anybody, a food blogger, whoever it is that's walking in, you are going to compare that snail with an escargot because that's the only thing you know. And inevitably, one of them has no childhood core memories. The other one has a very clear, distinct idea of status.
Yeah.
Which one do you think I'm going to respond to if I have absolutely no context of it? They were never part of the equation for how this idea or the journey started. It was more about how Chef Vijay, as he was growing up, would actually forage for snails with his grandmother. And was there a way to share that moment with somebody and take them back to that moment? That's it. You can like it, you can hate it, but you don't change the truth for it.
Yeah. I think that's really beautiful because it's done, obviously not as a gimmick, but it's done with intention. And people are responding to that intention because it was obviously a very genuine emotion. But okay, so I want to go back a little bit. How did you land on being unapologetic? Because when Rahi opened in 2017, I think you were still sort of toying with like truffle khichdi and smoked salmon chaat. When did the penny drop for the two of you?
When we ran out of that penny.
And I think like the day we formed the company, there was no term as unapologetic foods or anything that. I think what happened is I always say that this term, and obviously then Adda happened and we kept on doing what we believed in. And I think this term actually came more from our guests who kept on visiting our restaurants. And they kept on giving this term to us than we actually having that. So if you ask the actual origin of this term, there is no defined answer to it unless until we can just say one fine day we woke up and we dreamt about it. It's a fake thing.
Something interesting happened with Adda was Chintan was toying with the idea of calling it. He's like, I'm like, dude, what's the point of view? What is it that we're really serving? And he's like, Ronnie, this is like asli Indian. I said, to sab nakli hai kya baki? Or he's like, no, that's not what I mean. But this is like asli Indian. I'm like, I can't put that on. Like nobody's gonna get it. It's like an inside joke that's silly, whatever. So we ended up calling it an Indian canteen. Even that doesn't really generate much emotion in America. Canteen, people know cantina and Mexican food.
Yeah.
Fine. And the reason we called it is because it was located across a university. And Chintan is like, I remember those moments of like going to a college canteen and all that. Like that's how we would do this. Something very interesting happened is that when we started our journey, I specifically remember this bald African-American man who showed up and he goes, I'm like, thank you for being here. How did you hear about it? He's like, I read this local blog and in the blog, it says unapologetic Indian food has arrived in New York. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I remember having a conversation with somebody about it and that person happened to write the word unapologetic. And he says, I was lying down on my couch and it made me spring right back up and I just got in my car and somehow I got here. I'm scratching my head and I thought it's a one-off comment. And it started to resonate to a point where, as Chintan said, hundreds of guests would be like, this is like unapologetic Indian. And I think that's slowly we said, wow, this is having a very different kind of a reaction. And through that reaction, we feel a different energy. It changes us in the process of who we are, how we think of ourselves. This is when it came together and became this entire eruption where people started to think that it was cool for them to bring their colleague who've never tried it, saying, this is the real stuff. And it became this. New York Magazine wrote a very interesting word that I thought is powerful. And they said that, Dhamaka became a social currency. That was a turning point.
That's amazing. I want to understand how did the two of you meet? Chintan, you grew up in Bombay, moved to New York. Roni, of course, you've been in the States for a while. At what point did you meet and start to think that working together was a good idea?
Tinder, we swipe right. That's it. Go ahead, Chintan.
So I didn't move to New York straight up. I actually was in India, moved to Singapore, then I moved to Cleveland, then Atlanta. And then I got this opportunity in 2016 to move as an executive chef in one of the restaurants in New York. And I think in middle of that, through a common friend, we met. And I remember, I think it might be March 18th or something, 2017 is when we met first time. March 15th, I think. March 15th is when we met first time. And I think,
I have
How
no
do you
clue.
remember
But
this
okay.
date? Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. And then I think the first day I officially started working together is May 1st, 2017. And Rahi opened up May 11th, 2017. So yeah, it was an 11-day period. But that's how we started working together.
In some way, maybe we were both being a little bit apologetic towards each other because we didn't know each other. Adda was the first time. We built enough of a relationship for him to say, you know what, screw you, I'm not going to do it. But it takes a lot for somebody to start a new relationship and then to say, you know what, I don't really care what you think. This is what's going to happen. Because that's literally what happened at Adda. But I think that was not happening at Rahi. At Rahi, we were still worried about, okay, how do we make this business work? It's the first time you're working together. You're worried about, well, is that going to piss him off? At some point, you just stop worrying about what's going to piss the other person off and you just do it like, trust me on this. This is what I'm going to do. But it takes every relationship, be it a marriage, a business partnership, anything, it needs a foundation to be built upon. And if there's one thing that became abundantly clear to each of us is that we're radically two different people. We're not similar at all. I think that's our biggest strength. That we are radically two different people, but our journey and the vision is exactly the same. Sometimes his way works, sometimes my way works. But the reality is, it's about finding that common ground and knowing when to push back. That is, I think, one of the single biggest factors that can make or break a business.
Wow, that's marriage advice. That's business partner advice.
I wish I could apply that to my own marriage, but that's a different story.
Fair enough. Okay, so the two of you meet. You have this beautiful relationship that's evolving, and along the way, you're sort of bringing different facets of your own personal history into your restauranting business. Could you talk to me about like what aspects of your personal identity or family influences have shaped your restaurants?
So first and foremost, it's not a beautiful relationship.
Yeah,
It's
I was going to
actually
say,
a very
literally, I
toxic
thought the same thing.
It is a toxic relationship. Let's put it that way. Genuinely, it's very toxic. It's very toxic as a relationship. So yeah, actually, like we are two split personalities. Like I'm not joking. Like when I say split, they're like two different personalities, and I genuinely feel that my wife's personality is very much similar to Roni. So I have to deal with this at work and at home, both the places. But I think what happens is that at a very early stage when we started working together, each of us defined our roles. Let's say we are doing a restaurant. He'll come up with the design. He'll come with the idea. He'll come up with this. He'll come up with all the ideas. He has actually the final say in it. He will show it to me, he'll ask my opinion. He might say, I think the blue color goes well. I might say red color goes well. But that final say still lies with him. If I'm doing something and I strongly feel about it, even though he doesn't like it, but he believes in my conviction for a specific dish or a specific idea, he'll say, you know what, if you are convinced, just go ahead with it. Because I think we have, it's a very, it sounds very simple, but in practicality, it's a very difficult thing for anybody to do that. Even till date, we have this phenomenal structure where it just works like this.
Right. I think it's no, he said something interesting when we first met, and that I think I will forever remember that, which is, he says, Ronnie, it's not always that we're going to agree with each other. But even if we don't, and we decide to go that route, if one of us don't agree, we have to still give it that 110%. If there's one recipe that I can think of, one key component of what makes or breaks a group and an ounce of success that might come with it, it starts with conviction. And once you start to destroy each other's conviction, I don't think you have an identity. So the very thing we're fighting for will be lost is because we never respected that for each other. But that is a core pillar of how I think a partnership really works in many ways, especially in the restaurant world where so many things are moving parts. Oh God, I think it's one of those key recipes.
Yeah.
So, because we are on the recipe, I have to mention this, that the first dish ever I made,
Oh,
when we
Lord.
started working together, was this dish, and he outright rejected. He says, and this was at Rahi, and he said, this is horrible, it won't work and everything. I genuinely thought the dish will work, and I genuinely thought it's an outstanding dish, it will work.
What was this dish?
It's okay, we'll get it. Was kale pakoda, and I made it, and I loved it. I loved eating it. I thought it was an outstanding dish. Rejected it flat out, like he hated it to the core. So obviously it was not on the menu. And then when we were doing Adda, he was actually so upset with the menu that time that he actually didn't speak to me for a few days, like 10 days or something, which was the best time of my life. Yeah. So he didn't speak to me, and because I was doing the menu of my own and I was just going to do it, I actually added kale pakoda in there. So he didn't even know about it. It was on the menu. And then one of the publication actually said this was one of the best dishes of that particular year. So this is because he said recipe. I remember I have to rub this in again on it.
This story is never it's gonna hang right above my head for the rest of my life. But yes,
if you die before me, Ronnie, on your what do you say, the stone? I'll make sure I pay money for tombstone. I'll engrave it and put it there.
Kale pakoda.
People put fool. ये kale pakoda लेके डाल.
Madam. Only if you die before me. So that's what I'm saying. Like, make sure it's there. It's just to rub some salt in.
Salt, chaat masala, everything.
Everything.
And this is how I will never get a tombstone in a mainstream funeral home. Because they're like, it smells like kale pakoda. Chalo nikalo isko.
The worst thing is, even after somebody wrote it and people liked it, he's like, yeah, it's okay. It's not that. I said, yeah, that doesn't matter. You still don't pay money for it.
That's hilarious. Okay, so Adda was clearly yours, Chintan. And Masala and Sons sort of like borrowed from a lot of your own personal identity, Ronnie. Is that how you kind of approached your restaurants? That, okay, we're going to do one for you and one for me? I'd love to know, how do you sort of plan your concepts?
I think the word planning is an interesting choice. I'm not sure how much is planned, how much is instinctual. I mean that.
Okay.
So we never approached it that way. It was very instinctual, where Chintan was having conversations with my father, who is a wonderful home cook, who really loves to cook. I've seen him, as I grow up, cook amazing things. Like, this is the man who would go up to the local vendor for Mughlai paratha and say, I'll pay you for 40 of them if you show me how to make it. And then comes home on our dining table, the man starts to try this. And I never understood. I thought that was normal. But as I went to my 30s, I started to realize, I'm like, this is not normal. Nobody's father does this unless they really love something. This is absurd. So he had an affinity towards it. He's not a chef, but he's a wonderful home cook. But I think Chintan started in his conversations with him. There were two things that came out of it. One was something that was deeply personal, which is, wow, how come there's no representation of food from that region in this country? right? So as we explore India, we start to summarize that. As Chintan mentioned earlier, 10 to 12 dishes define the entire country. But India is a cluster of many different countries. It's like another Europe, technically speaking, right? But we don't approach the regionality from that regard. And it was a conversation to say, you know what, is it worth a shot? I don't know if it's going to work or not. I have no idea. I've run what's called a Sun and Pop shop before I met Chintan. I've done every single one of those things in order to understand how broken our industry had been, how much of a hierarchy really existed. And so all those personal moments led to the idea of saying, you know what, the lease is over. We're letting the location go regardless. Does it make sense to actually bring this to life? But in the original idea that it used to be, and let's give it a shot. And that's all we did.
It's very funny you speak about Masalawala because what happened is like he told me, oh, we should do Masalawala. And I told him like it's a very legacy restaurant, right? It's a very legacy restaurant. And I don't know how we'll achieve that. It's going to be very difficult because I said, just to give you a context, it was Masalawala was not a restaurant. It was his dad's identity. So even today, I'm not exaggerating, even today, when the people hear the word Masalawala, they actually get a picture of his father in front of them, literally. And they will ask us, is Masalawala going to be there? They don't say like, Mr. Mazumdar is going to be there or Roni's father is going to be there. They literally ask, is Masalawala going to be there? Like for them, Masalawala is his dad and everything. So it was a very legacy restaurant. And when he told me, and I said, Roni, we should name it something else. I genuinely don't know what we'll do it. And he says, no, I think it's an idea we should explore and everything. So when I sat with his dad and started chatting with him, he's literally very passionate about cooking Bengali food. Like if there's a function or an event at Roni's house and we are going there, he actually cooks from 1 to 2 a.m. in the night. And the food is served at 12 p.m. or something, 1 p.m., 12 p.m. The guy is up from that time cooking. He'll cook rabdi like that. He'll cook chhena like that. Everything.
Wow.
Like
That's
it is
incredible.
crazy. Like genuinely, it's crazy. And I asked him like, why did you do Masalawala? Like what was the intention? And he says, I wanted to serve Bengali food. But I said, the menu which I saw always didn't have any Bengali food. And he says, no, I wanted to serve Bengali food, but people were not ready to eat it.
Yeah.
You understand? So he says, I was making the food, nobody was eating it, I'll throw it away. I'll make it again, nobody's eating, I'll throw it away. And then after a few months, obviously they realized that it needs to be a mainstream restaurant. So the restaurant became a mainstream restaurant and that identity of Bengali food was gone. And I think that's when I came to Roni and I said, you know what, why don't we make the entire restaurant on that idea? That it has to serve Bengali food. What's wrong in that?
Yeah. No, that's incredible. And then, okay, so there was Masalawala that started serving Bengali food, and then came Semma. But of course, with Semma, there was resounding success. There was Michelin-starred. Chef Vijay was recently nominated for the James Beard Chef Award for New York. That's an award that you've won in the past. What was that sort of moment like? Was it a kind of full circle moment in a sense in the group? Just to see Indian food and like different concepts being recognized?
I think none of us expected it, I'll be honest with you. And people will think that we are just trying to be just to make it up. Like it happened so fast and so quickly, we didn't even have time to understand the amount of magnitude of things that were happening around it.
There was a very high-profile individual from India who was joking around, who says, "Arey yaar, dosa bech ke Michelin mil gaya." So it's a very telling statement. Yeah, I know it's a joke. I understand that nothing is... But what are we saying to ourselves? That in order to earn a Michelin star, we need to cook something else, some other food. To be honest, that's what we also believed. That when we started, we were like, I don't think this fits the bill for what a perception of what a Michelin-starred restaurant is in the world. Because it looked different. It felt different. It's still the idea of getting a big brown bowl of gravy doesn't necessarily resonate, right? It has to be kind of, doesn't matter how you embellish that.
Yeah.
So I think in many ways that was another huge change. I think it was when Semma earned the star, it was the only Michelin-starred Indian restaurant at that time to have a Michelin star across America. I think if there's one thing that can summarize it, I call it the immigrant shackle. When you move to this country, you put yourself around these shackles. You tell yourself that I'm not allowed to do this. I shouldn't do this because it breaks the barriers. It shakes the system up. And I think it's an incredibly liberating feeling to live life by your own rules and to unshackle yourself. I think that's a really, really powerful feeling. So if there's one thing that's driving us, it's that emotion, that feeling. And I think that's the energy that's bringing every single person around us together.
Yeah, that's so heartwarming to hear. Okay, so there's been a lot of talk around the Michelin star, especially in India. Each time a guide comes out, there's this sort of wave of conversation that goes around of why isn't Michelin in India, and does Michelin even understand Indian cuisine? I'd love to hear your perspective. Like, do you think that there should be maybe different criteria when Michelin looks at different kinds of cuisine?
I'll just explain you. I think what happens is that it's a body which has its own rule, and they are judging you by those rules.
Yeah.
It's like me coming to you and saying that, I am good in addition and subtraction. I'm not good in dividing and multiplication. So you as a teacher should judge me only on my addition and subtraction, right? Let's say, there are other organizations. So let's say world's 50 best or best bars in the world. They have their own criteria and judgments, right? And they judge you on that. You cannot say that the world's 50 best, the criterias are wrong because I wasn't judged for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it really depends on how we look at the landscape around the world. And look, I don't think being grumpy is going to move the needle.
Definitely not.
Right?
Yeah.
And there are various organizations, and I see many things are evolving around us. And I think Semma is a glowing example of what is possible while being unapologetic and still earning a star 3 years in a row. What we don't do is that we're operators, we're creators, and we focus on what we want to create rather than us trying to say, here's this big marketing plan of how 10 people are going to talk about us differently. I have no idea. But one thing I do know is that if we keep making ourselves better and better every day, take the learnings and not even those smaller increments, it will lead to a better future. And that's the world that we live in. Somebody can say the same for New York Times and New York Magazine and Eater and 50 Best. It's all around us. But their job is to judge. Our job is to create. We don't want to flip that role. That's a different problem.
Fair enough. Where is Unapologetic Foods going next? I know that Adda is opening soon, but beyond that, what is the larger picture that you're looking at?
I believe at Unapologetic Foods, we don't judge success by the number of restaurants we open, but the number of hearts we change. If you look at our North Star and what the future holds and what we define as success, which we are nowhere near, is I wish one day people would look at us on the same level playing field as everybody else. And if you look at the journey ahead, that journey requires us to go beyond New York. We're headed to Philadelphia next. We're opening up, various concepts there that's coming right up. And kind of expanding on beyond that into different regions. And I think having a bigger conversation across the world towards what it is to be unapologetic, I think that's the power of what it is. Food has the ability to bring people around the table, those who are from completely different backgrounds. And by doing that, you're bridging an amazing gap and building an incredible level of trust, and therefore enhancing the very idea of what our community, who we are, what our dishes look like and taste like, and how our people are. I always say this, that it's not about, people are not judging what's on the plate. People are judging the people behind that plate. So each time when you say this dish is not worth it, you didn't just say about that dish. You said, I'm not worth it. It's personal. That khichdi versus a risotto conversation is going to continue on, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about nose to tail cooking, in other cuisines, we glorify that like it's it's the craziest invention. Yet we miss the very idea of what is a bheja, what is a gurda kapura. I think these are the fundamentals that I think requires a very internal change. And I think as we change ourselves, we see that change happening across the world.
Absolutely. What about you, Chintan? What are you feeling for the next steps for unapologetic foods?
Sorry for my language. As I said, we are like few days out from opening up the restaurant, so I'm shitting my pants right now talking here in a literal sense, if you ask me. No. And honestly, I think, and Ronnie summarized it very well, that it's just that we'll keep on growing, we'll keep on doing what we believe in. There will be people who actually, like, I remember Ronnie actually gets very affected by it. He's showing that he's not affected by it. He gets really affected by it. Like there was somebody at Dhamaka when we opened up and it was there. So obviously Dhamaka got an insane amount of accolades, right? And we never expected it. It's crazy. And this was some other restaurant or family dining here. And the daughter happened to say to the mother that how come they got so much after selling a saag paneer? And somehow, like Ronnie was there, he actually felt very bad about it. And I think we are still fighting those battles within our community. And we'll keep on fighting because, we have reached, we have become immune to it now. We have become immune to it. Like, I remember, the day we decided we were going to shut down Rai and open up Semma. So I went back home and I told my wife that, and she's like, oh, you're going to sell idli dosa. And I'm like, that is such a ridiculous statement to say. There are 5 states in southern India which does so much food, and you just thought of 2 dishes which defines the entire, this is the most ridiculous thing. And a lot of people keep on saying that. So I think way forward is going to be very exciting. It's going to be very challenging also, because I hope we actually also have a non-Indian restaurant now.
Yes.
We have a Filipino restaurant.
Yeah.
And what happened with Eric, he was the first employee of our company. So the day we started working together, he was the first person that we hired. And he was a Filipino kid from Philippines, worked with us for close to 6.5 years. And one day, we were sitting and it just went through us like, Eric, 6.5 years you are cooking Indian food. Do something new with your life now. Do something. And I said, do you want us to recommend you to somebody to go and work there? And he says, actually, I want to open up a unapologetically Filipino restaurant.
Smitha, the future of unapologetic isn't Ronnie and Chintan.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. We wish to build a platform where many chefs, like a Chef Vijay, like a Chef Eric, from different cuisines, from voices that are not being heard right now, feel empowered enough to form that same lunchroom table and create their own sense of power and identity. And take it Vietnamese, take it Filipino, we can keep going. It's the whole idea of toppling the regime of what is ethnic versus non-ethnic food or mainstream, kind of changing that landscape and going beyond the usual conversation. That is sort of where we see the future.
Amazing. I have to ask, would you ever open in India? Would you ever bring any of your concepts to India or start a new restaurant in India?
Chintan.
You're giving each other these knowing smiles.
I thought he's going to jump on that. Now, difficult questions, he'll put it on me, actually. No, so as we are talking, there's some talks happening. And we cannot say yes or no, either one of them at this point of time. So
okay,
it's
amazing.
a question mark.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. I'm hoping that all happens. So fingers crossed. Since your USP is all about being unapologetic, I want you to give me your unapologetic takes on a bunch of different things. What is your unapologetic take on what Western diners need to know about Indian food? One thing.
Just dirty your hands and eat it.
The most dynamic flavor profile you're going to experience.
Okay. What is, in your opinion, an overhyped Indian dish?
Chicken tikka masala, which is not even Indian. Let's put it that way.
I'll agree.
Okay. What, in your opinion, is Michelin-worthy street food?
In India? And because I'm from Mumbai, and I'll say this, like honestly, Bombay, a lot of street food is Michelin worthy. I would say bhel and a sev puri cart, a sandwich cart, and street style Chinese food. Also the dosa. I actually love the street food in Bombay. So I just can't, like everything in Bombay on street is outstanding. I didn't say vada pav because everybody will say vada pav, but all of them are Michelin worthy.
Fuchka. There's only one thing for me.
Ronnie, it's pani puri. It's pani.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Fair enough. One thing that annoys you about how Indian food is marketed in the US?
Ethnic. It's not ethnic food at all. It's a mainstream food. People still call it ethnic food, and that actually boils my blood.
Restaurants in India that deserve Michelin stars.
I love Bombay Canteen. Obviously, I've heard great things about Mask, never dined there. I have great things about Lore in Bangalore, never dined there. Obviously, Nar, never dined there. But a lot of them.
Lots of eating to do.
Yeah, lots of eating to do. And I think we have, like, it doesn't need validation from someone like us. There are a lot of people who are doing amazing job in India right now. Like, it's a phenomenal time in India right now. And I'm sure you know more about it than us, to be honest.
What I think is exciting is that we are breaking that template that has existed for restaurants for so long. And I think one of the examples of when you think about Nar, like I think Chintan called up Pratik and we were about to go there, but the timing didn't work out. We were really excited. We went to try something. Chintan, what was that? The Bombay duck. Where did we go for this?
Konkan Swad.
Konkan Swad. We go there to try it, and I thought it was the most outrageously good dish. It is like utter perfection in terms of how they do it. And I asked the chef who we were eating with to say, "Do you think you can do it?" He says, "Ronnie, the truth is I can come close to it, but I'm not sure if I can deliver exactly this level." And I said, "Why not?" It's a very honest conversation.
Yeah.
And I so appreciate his integrity and honesty about that. He says, "Ronnie, this is now generational. There's something magical about somebody who is doing that task over and over for over a generation. Now it's practically part of their muscle memory, DNA, the thought process. It is impossible to match that." So each time we end up judging restaurants based on how opulent it looks. It's inside this hotel, it's blah, 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 whatever. That's what defines the caliber of a restaurant that you are. But what we don't define is the craftsmanship that takes to do this. I was in Calcutta, I tried a kebab made by this person. Laziz is the place. It's a little stall. Incredible. And the person, he came down, he started making the kebabs. Outrageously good. And my point is, I can guarantee you, it's that last 10% is where the magic lies. And I can line up all the best chefs in the country. And I can assure you, practically no one will match that caliber. Yet that guy standing on the street corner will never ever receive the kind of respect that someone else will. And I think that's a broken system.
That's a very unapologetic take. Okay. I want your unapologetic go-tos. What's your first meal when you're back in India?
I end up at one of the family homes, and they inevitably get like some kind of a biryani that's hot right now in Calcutta, because that's where I end up going. But the truth of the matter is, it's, as you know, with Indian families, like they're always cooking at home. So my meal back at home is usually a 10 katori style, everything you can imagine for Bengali food.
My first meal always when I go to Bombay is Konkan Swad.
Konkan Swad is amazing.
I don't know if you know about the one in Goregaon, not the new one that they have opened up.
The Goregaon one. Yeah. That's the OG.
So, that's the OG. That's my... Actually, if you go there, there's a paper cutting of mine. So there was an interview I gave long time back, and they asked me your favorite restaurant. And I said Konkan Swad, obviously. And my brother literally goes there every week to dine. Like, he knows my brother very well, obviously, and everything. So my brother just showed him the article. So he somehow got it from somewhere, did it, and he put it up over there. So it's funny, So, but every time I go there, I have to... Konkan Swad is my first meal.
Okay. What's your unapologetic go-to for Chakhna?
There's a bar where you get this chili chicken. In the bar, like, was the name of the bar? I forget the name. I think it was on Warsaw Link Road. I wasn't drinking that. I was a teetotaler for the longest time. I started drinking in the last 10, 12 years. That time I wasn't drinking. So I would just go hang out with people just to eat the Chakhna. And this plate had a very specific thing. Obviously the pomfret fry.
Yeah.
And then they had the fish fry, whatever was there. And they had this chili chicken, which was basically like pieces of bone with very little meat on it. Like very little, but in this spicy sauce and everything. And when you ate it, you would get this meat and collagen and cartilages and everything. And it was outstanding. So I cannot forget that. I still think it was outstanding. So that is my favorite Chakhna, obviously.
Okay.
I left when I was 12 years old, and so I didn't really have Chakhnas in India. But I think whenever I'm back, there's a very specific nostalgic flavor and a dish that I look for. It's a thing called shor bhaja. Shor means like, the top of the little film that forms on top of the milk. Imagine creating almost 1,000-layer version of that and then frying that. And then in between, you're putting the rubbery on it. You can't even get the real stuff in Calcutta right now. You have to go to the outskirts because everybody's doing like this shortcut version. I went there looking for it, but I used to have it as a kid. It is the most outrageous thing that you'll have. It has like this little crunch and just, I'm going to lose my mind thinking about it.
Ronnie, let me first open the dictionary for you right now. The word Chakhna means that you have something when you drink.
I get it. I was 12 years old, so clearly that wasn't...
Not when you drink milk when you drink milk you have this. She's talking about alcohol. Chakhna is a term associated with alcohol.
Awesome. But I mean, it may pair well with alcohol. You never know.
You never know.
Definitely something to try.
Yeah, with a milk punch. We'll make a milk punch.
Yes,
we'll
actually.
With the milk
Fat wash.
That'd be insane.
Yeah.
So it's a limiting belief. See, these are the people I work with. You see this?
But awesome. Thank you so much, guys. This has been an amazing chat. And thank you so much for giving me your time just ahead of the opening of a restaurant. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a blast.
Awesome. Thank you, Smitha.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot. And we'll see you soon, either on this side of the world or the other side of the world. But
On
we'll
this
catch
side.
up soon. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank
Chintan.
you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to show us some love. Hit like, drop a comment, and scribble it in chutney. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever food memories live. And tell us, which dish from your childhood lives rent-free in your head?